Welcome to this new episode of Beyond Conversations. My name is David Orban, and I am the Managing Advisor of Beyond Enterprises. We analyze and share the power of technology with our clients, helping them to achieve the full potential of their projects. And these technologies are indeed becoming very powerful, whether we are talking about blockchain or artificial intelligence, the metaverse, augmented reality or virtual reality technologies. They have the power of profoundly changing the way that we live. And that is exactly the reason why, if we want to deploy them responsibly in society, we have to think deeply about their implications. What types of changes they will bring, and are these desirable, or can they be set up in order to bring forward desirable changes in society? And that is the basis for the ethical and moral analysis of the technologies that we are seeing. I am honored to be an advisor to the Metavethics Institute that does exactly that. It wants to apply the intellectual power of its founders and components and advisors to understand what are the ethical implications of the metaverse and in general of digital realities, in order to make sure that as they are included in regulations by governments, as they are included in technology platforms by startups and enterprises, they are improving our lives in an inclusive fashion, where the benefits of the technology are available for all. So I want to welcome Matteo Zallio, who is the founder of the Metavethics Institute. Matteo, welcome to Beyond Conversations.
Thank you so much, David, for the invitation. It's a real honor to be here today and talking more about this new field of research, but also about the passion that is driving me towards developing more evidence-based results around this area. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, David.
So let's start with that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you chose to dedicate yourself to this particular field?
So, well, I've always been fascinated by finding out opportunities out of the challenges that everybody faces. So whenever there is a problem or a challenge or a roadblock, as a researcher, I step in and I try to map out how we can find opportunities to address that challenge, to find a solution for that challenge. And throughout my experience as as a researcher throughout the years, back when I was in academia, also while working in industry, I found opportunities to really bring with evidence the solutions to the market, the solutions to the people that need to really use products or services to address their needs. And so in this area of really emerging technologies where, we have such a vast range of new products and new services and new technologies coming out every year, we are facing a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of implications, a lot of potential challenges. And throughout my career, as a person really passionate about researching the problems, transforming them in opportunities, and helping teams to build solutions, well, I think we got to a stage where, with extended reality technologies and therefore virtual reality and augmented reality, we are really at the start of a new era of digitalized and virtualized worlds in which people are going to spend a lot of time in the future. And therefore, there are some implications that haven't been studied so far. And that's why I think, with the background and the research activities that I've done so far, together with a very large group of advisors and scientific advisors, we are really trying to understand more about these implications of this emerging technology.
So, can you illustrate it by highlighting what are some of the key ethical considerations that arise, for example, in the context of the metaverse?
Absolutely. So, we have been using this hype towards the metaverse. And I like to also stress out that, the blending virtual reality and augmented reality into these mixed reality experiences. Also, as we have seen recently with the recent launch of the Apple Vision Pro, which really mixes up this ability to have augmented reality experiences together with virtual reality, and therefore bringing really the value of extended reality. Well, we are in a moment in history where we have limitless opportunities. However, if we think about what potential challenges can increase concerns among the community, and weaken public trust in business and technology and this new technology, well, we have really a big opportunity here to navigate the ethical considerations and the ethical implications of these new technologies. And so, for example, we're really exploring how the freedom of expression, together with boundaries and limitations to secure a safe and inclusive environment, digital virtual environment, could really lead to better develop extended reality experience for the community. This is just one of the examples I've been working on with the research team. But just to stress out, we have limitless opportunities. However, this is an entire new technology. The behavior of the potential users might be different than the behavior of the users using technologies in the physical world. And therefore, that's why we need to identify and study what are the implications, and also ultimately to support companies as well as policymakers with guidelines, with evidence-based insights to understand what to do and what not to do.
So, what are the ways that your desire to support objective evidence-based research in these digital realities can be implemented? Can you give an example of how you collect data that can allow you to um, find whether a given hypothesis is supported or maybe contradicted by the data, and how do you turn this into potential policy recommendations?
So that is a great question, David. And I would like to start by saying that we are not a policy making organization. We support them through evidence so then they can actually develop the right policy at the right time for the right community. Because as we know, there are differences in various communities. There is the concept of equity, diversity, and inclusion, which really shapes how the customer and the potential user behavior are. And just to give you an example, we have developed a manifesto for good metaverses and extended reality technologies, which really touches on 10 different points that we discovered through various sessions of research, interviews with leaders, experts, and the scientific community. And throughout this manifesto, we're really breaking down every single point. For example, I can mention the first. A good metaverse and a good extended reality experience should be open and accessible. And therefore, we're breaking down these points into research projects that are feeding actually with answers and with evidence the opportunities to develop policies around this topic. And one, as I mentioned before, is around to what extent freedom of expression, for example, in a virtual world where we have avatars, can be granted within the boundaries of safety and security. So, within the boundaries of having an experience that is safe and doesn't provide cognitive harm for different users. And so, by doing user testing, using, for example, the technology acceptance models, but also running questionnaires and running also studies with users, we can actually test out if, for example, certain content might be leading over the boundary of freedom of expression, and therefore leading customers to be into a sort of tricky space where their cognitive behavior might be considered in danger. And therefore, this helps to provide enough data to understand where we have to put the boundaries to guarantee this freedom of expression, whereas we also have a sort of policing environment or a sort of place in which people can be safe because they can share content but within the boundaries of safety. And this is an example of evidence-based research that we promote to policymakers so that they know how much they can influence and how much they can put in place to develop a specific policy around that topic.
And is it your expectation that in the near future or farther future, digital realities will require specific legislation and specific regulations, or is it more likely that very simply extending existing frameworks around equal opportunity or harassment or other types of behaviors and policies is going to be the right way to go?
I think this is a very interesting question, especially nowadays where we have um, technologies that were developed within labs, within research centers, but now are widely available to the public. For example, AI, artificial intelligence, but also this whole more democratized access to virtual reality and augmented reality, where with a couple of $100 we can, for now, buy VR headset or glasses. Of course, the price might be slightly higher for certain type of products, but compared to say 5 or 10 years ago, these technologies were not widely available. And so I would like to say, well, for the current regulation we have from, let's say, the physical world or the technologies that we have been using so far into these virtual environments, into these digital, immersive, and augmented experiences that are going to influence not just how people see the world, but also how people behave. And I'll give you an example. Did we think about the potential challenges in data safety and security that internet could bring to the consumers back in the 90s? What happened with social media in the past couple of years? How many cases against certain companies in terms of data leak or privacy and security? And therefore, I think that we are just scratching the surface now. And the more research we do around so many different topics that can be called out under the umbrella of data safety and security, the more we will understand
Yes, I don't know whether it was just for me, but there was a brief interruption in your connection. I am sure that your message got through, and we understood the importance of what you were saying. You mentioned the decisions that enterprises have to make as they adopt these technologies. What is, in your opinion, the best approach that they can take, given that it is unlikely that they can afford to wait until every little implication and every small um, a consequence of technologies that we are still all exploring is understood. The competitive pressure is such that they will want to move as early as possible rather than hold at until the latest possible time. So how should they um, strive to acquire the right kind of balance between this impossibility of the deepest analysis, but their desire to behave ethically?
Well, I think this is a sort of um, it's a very tricky question because, as we know, there is a need to push the technology and to push market adoption of such technology and experiences and content. Whereas on the other side, there is a high risk of leading into an undiscovered land where there could be potential big challenges to be solved down the line. I think an approach could be to literally leverage what we do at the Metavethics Institute and get to develop internal policies and guidelines that are that are based over the findings that not just us, but different institutions and different research organizations develop around this topic. So then internally, you have a series of assessment tools, or you have a series of guidelines, or a series of internal policies that actually drive the roadmap to the development of new content, new experiences, or new products. And I'm sure a lot of companies are already doing that, but many others that are really literally starting their business now with all these huge opportunities, these massive opportunities to develop content and develop new experiences for this new era of spatial computing, as just Apple mentioned Tim Cook mentioned a few days ago. um, it's a first step. So leveraging what we do to develop internal policy and guidelines will set these companies up for success. On the other hand, down the line, there is an interesting spot where when the company is innovating through these internal sort of policies and guidelines or assessment tools, then there is an opportunity then to advocate for the products and content that they develop in a way that is ethically compliant to the community, but also to policymakers. So policymakers and companies have a sort of bridge that is brought together by organizations like the Metavethics Institute, in which there is really a cooperation between who builds the innovation, the company, who does the research to provide insights for both the company as well as the policymakers in a way that is offering mutual benefits for both sides of the world, the innovators and the policymakers. Because ultimately, who has to benefit is the community, is the final user. And if both companies, as well as research institutions and policymakers, work together towards the same goal, we're not actually restricting innovation or boosting innovation by knowing in advance what are the areas that can cause potential challenges to the customers, to the users, to the community, as well as to restraining or limiting business opportunities to innovate.
Um, how do you define the area where Metavethics Institute acts, as opposed to other areas where it is probably, at least for the moment, it is not going to apply its process and publish its results. The reason why I think this matters is because it is certainly true that they are very important technologies with ethical implications, like genetically modified foods or autonomous lethal weapons that are not under the Metavethics Institute focus. But there are others that are potentially on the boundary. These days, for example, artificial intelligence and the implications of advanced AI have been very widely debated and are accelerating the regulatory understanding and are accelerating the conversations within enterprises of adoption and deployment of AI solutions. At the same time, AI is not at the largest extent about innovation in user experience or innovation in user interaction. It is not necessarily or not uniquely about creating immersive 3D worlds, augmented realities. So how do you think about the interaction of these technologies, the example that I gave, or others as well?
Well, I strongly believe that, and we've seen that in the past, and I strongly believe that a new technology, especially nowadays, at least in the past couple of decades, a new technology cannot survive or live by itself. These new technologies are blending, and there is an interplay that is happening between new technologies. So imagine, the internet was an enabler for many other technologies that were developed. So imagine the features and the functionalities of a smartphone or a tablet without having internet, without a 4 or 5G, without a Wi-Fi connection, a broadband. Would that be a useful tool to have? A smartphone without internet? Maybe, if we would have had perhaps another technology that would have made the smartphone or a tablet useful. So what I'm really saying is that the interplay between emerging technologies, and in particular when we think about XR, extended reality, and AI, is huge. The interplay is really what makes these technologies to work at best for the community and for the users. And to get back to your initial question, well, what where Metavethics Institute sits? Well, we are a community-driven, independent, non-for-profit think tank based at Cambridge, at the University of Cambridge, and we are dedicated to really establish a new field of research. We really aim to democratize knowledge and also develop ethical best practices through scientific research. So essentially, we're really saying through our research and through our collaborations that there is a strong interplay between VR, AR, and AI, which are actually really the big emerging trends of the recent couple of years. And as I mentioned before, the interplay of these technologies is what is going to shape the behavior, but also the of the potential users, but also of the market needs, and therefore how companies will innovate. So I think we're really seeing again a pattern emerging where the interplay between technologies is what will drive the need of having places and organizations like the Metavethics Institute strongly collaborating and bridging the gap between industry and policy making and the community.
The internet itself, and then later on the World Wide Web, benefited from the ability of a relatively small group to develop, share, and achieve the adoption of a standardized interoperable approach. And it looks like uh, for the past 20 plus years, both in more recent waves of technology innovation like mobile phone app stores or the various approaches to virtual reality. Even more recently, the whole issue of digital assets and the ownership and the portability of these digital assets, the leaner, open, and interoperable approach has been, at least in parts, lost. We have seen actually a degradation of interoperability where social networks are expecting the benefit of our attention while depriving us from the ability of very basic interactions. When there is an HTTP : some text in a message, I want it to be clickable. And if the social networks are stopping me from being able to click on it and go to the link that another user shared, I know that they are not serving my benefit. They are serving their own purposes that are conflicting with mine. So how can we, in your opinion, reacquire, not only as users, but ultimately also as platforms and technology providers, this deeper understanding of shared purpose and shared benefit through standards and interoperability that has been for the past couple of decades, if not lost, greatly diminished?
I think you're hitting on a really important topic, and interoperability is really as important as how we facilitate the interplay of technologies, and somehow very correlated. So, as you probably know, there is an organization um, which is the Metaverse Standards Forum, if we sit within the realm of VR and AR technologies, which goal is really to bring interoperable standards to the market in order to facilitate the communication of the data transfer, communicating information, and in short, basically sharing content across platforms in a way that is seamless. Um, I think it's key to bring to increase adoption, but most importantly, to increase the onboarding of new potential users to these technologies. So there is definitely a big challenge on the horizon about how, for example, how different pieces of technology, how different devices to facilitate the interaction with VR or AR content can use content developed with different formats. And you were mentioning just the example of the World Wide Web. So this is another key element to really facilitate an experience, an onboarding, and also an adoption of this new technology in such a way that, you know, the more users, the more mainstream a technology could be, the more lower the entry point and the price for this entry point could be. As we have seen, 15 years ago, smartphones were really expensive. Nowadays, after only 15 years, different types of smartphones can have different prices, but also some can be much more affordable than many years ago. Similarly, if we think about watching movies, or working or having meetings or working in a factory and trying to interact with different tools and machinery around us, well, once we break the entry point and the barriers to the entry point, and we actually enter, we let users and the community to enter these new technologies in a way that is more democratized, that means that we reach the goal of bringing interoperability to democratize the technology and the content in such a way that is accessible. And accessibility, I strongly believe that accessibility is then the ultimate goal. If we make something accessible, it means that in the background we have interoperability, and in the front end we have an ethical, safety, secure, inclusive, and accessible product that makes everybody to get and to step into it.
I was very positively impressed by the depth and the attention to detail that maybe unsurprisingly Apple puts in the design of its products. And an example of this just recently in the announcement of the Apple Vision Pro visor was the way that the platform handles eye tracking and gaze tracking, where it would be really almost a utopian, salivating future for advertisers to get access to where you are looking, and then based on the data and their ability to analyze it, sell you more advertising and more product in a manner that could be extremely intrusive and really intruding on our privacy. And what Apple did instead is to create a layer where the eye tracking and the gaze tracking is only available to the device until such time that you actually decide to do something with your with what you are looking at. And I haven't, of course, experienced the device myself yet, as no one outside of Apple has. But as I understand, when you stop your eye on an object, on a digital object in your field of view, and then you tap your finger, that is the act of selection, and that is when what you are looking at is passed on to the particular application. So I think this is an example of a great way of thinking very deeply and in a smart manner on how to have privacy first design influence the rest in a very natural cascade of consequences. Do you think that only companies as deep pocketed as Apple can afford something like this? How can a startup or a research institute or even an enterprise that doesn't have the billions available for research that Apple has come up with solutions that are as thoughtful as this example that I gave?
Well, I love the fact that you brought up this example because we have never had such a commonly available, market available technology that can bring such a depth of and quality and quantity of data that really tailor the experience around not a user segment, but around one single individual. And my short answer to your question is there is no excuse for a multi-trillion dollar company versus a multi-million or small startup company to not design for ethics. They have no excuses, and I'll tell you why. First, they can access to the technical reports, the papers, and the studies that we at Metavethics Institute develop. But like us, other institutions, other think tanks, and other places can potentially share their research as an open access. And I'll give an example regarding this interesting topic that you brought up. In one of our studies that is available in our papers, but also in our technical report that people can download from our website, we actually found that the impact of such eye tracking, but not just eye tracking, but also other information, other data that can be tracked through the, for example, the Apple Vision Pro, can lead to new strategies such as the bespoke behavioral advertising, which could support businesses to create personalized advertisement and offer users services and products answering not their current needs, but their future needs. On the other hand, for example, um, as we know that virtual reality experiences are about a lot about the point of view. What the use of this data can really enhance the so-called reality distortion filters that can either mine user safety, but also they represent a massive opportunity to create an added value for the user that can see the appearance of objects and content differently than other users or other observers perceiving in the virtual world. So to give you an example of how the reality distortion filter, which is something that we have brought up through our research, is imagine that we are in a virtual environment and we have two avatars, and the two avatars have two different t-shirts. From one viewer, those two avatars can have the same t-shirt because we apply a filter that allows one user to see the same content on these two t-shirts on two avatars versus another user can actually see the two avatars without any reality distortion filter applied, where the two t-shirts are actually different over the two avatars. This is just a very simple example, but imagine um, uh, how this opportunity translates when we talk about augmented reality experiences. There is a massive, massive opportunity to use data through the bespoke behavioral advertisement approach, but also using these reality distortion filters, either as good and either as potential negative or bad implications.
Um, if the people watching this video want to get involved as those who could work together with you and others at the Metavethics Institute, or as clients for your research, and engage you in additional activities, what is the best way that they can understand how to get engaged and how to work together with you?
Well, I'm very happy you asked me this question because um, the most direct way for everybody to engage with us is to follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter and see on a daily basis the updates, the new research findings, not just from us but from many other research institutions and also companies they bring out. But also, if you want to get involved, visit our website and get in touch with us, and we're very happy to bring you on board. Our goal is really to be an independent research hub, non for profit driven, that really brings value to the community by supporting policymakers and companies to do the right thing. So that's where we stand for, and that's where we are to support the community.
So, Matteo, thank you very much for being here with us today. Good luck with Metavethics Institute and the important mission that you are pursuing. And I am looking forward to continuing our conversations in the future as well.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you everybody on the live stream today. Thank
Thank you for being here with us at Beyond Conversations. I am looking forward to explore the technologies that are rapidly emerging and their implications with other leaders that we are going to invite in the future. And I hope you will join us. See you next time.